Welcome back for another episode of the Battery Podcast from Siemens Digital Industries. In the last episode, we left off with Roger Atkins of Electric Vehicles Outlook, talking about the investments being made in the world of battery. I'm your moderator, Nick Finberg, joined by our host and battery expert, Puneet Sinha. In wrapping up our conversation with Roger, we'll be diving into the impact of regulation on the market and what some businesses or even governments are doing to stay competitive. In the last episode, we brought up battery passports in relation to government intervention in the market, and the rollout for Europe is fast approaching for that. What's going on at battery manufacturers and OEMs to tackle this new requirement?
Yeah, battery passport regulation is little less than 2 years away. So the way it is for our audience, come February 2027, any company that is looking to sell a system that has a battery of more than 2 kilowatt hour, they won't be able to sell it unless it has a QR code that documents, hey, what chemistry and what is the supply chain, carbon footprint, and certain level of information that comes with it, right? So what it does is, again, going back to the point that Roger made, I think it is an effort from EU perspective to bring more supply chain traceability in terms of where various minerals and materials are coming from, but also encouraging companies to have control over the overall carbon footprint and other like a wastewater and everything that comes with it, especially with battery manufacturing. And why it is, I mean, this is a conversation that has happened many times in news and many other outlets. People have talked about, that, hey, is batteries really clean, or are electric vehicles going to be cleaner than IC vehicles? And the crux of that conversation comes from the fact that if you look at the battery production, it's extremely energy intensive process. Although when you put that same battery in a vehicle, of course there is no tailpipe emission. So overall, if you look at the complete life cycle of electric vehicle, the emissions are much lower than IC engine. There is no comparison. But if you just look at the battery production, it's extremely energy intensive. Some of the studies that I've seen say that in some of the worst case scenarios, around 30 to 40 units of energy you have to consume to create 1 unit of battery energy, right? So the point is it's extremely energy intensive. So how companies are looking to optimize their overall energy consumption, what energy mix, clean energy or the traditional energy sources they are using to power that large-scale manufacturing, gigafactories, that all are part of this, right? How much scrap rate they are having, the wastewater. So all of that, EU is providing that, looking to bring that perspective so that companies have visibility and onto all of those elements. And also, what it also will help is when the batteries are coming to end of life, as those batteries are getting utilized, there is a consumer can understand what is the remaining value of their batteries. If they have to sell those cars in the market, what is the real value they can get out of it, or how the companies, automakers, or a system integrator like energy storage company, whosoever, what are they supposed to take it for the second usage, which are possible, versus recycling, and make a data-driven decision based on the data that is getting collected and shared on how that battery is being utilized. So it is a major piece of regulation that will come into effect in February, and a lot of details are getting figured out. But the important thing is that battery passport is, although it is coming from EU, there are similar efforts that are being made in Asia as well. I mean, China is looking to, they have said they want to, all the battery manufacturing and whatnot, they want to, mimic or align with some of those EU battery passport regulation, and other countries are doing that. So yes, it is starting with EU, come in less than 2 years, but it is very likely that the similar regulations or that enforce certain supply chain traceabilities are in effect in other parts of the world. Because of that, the challenges for any company, for example, any automaker, they are engaging with, let's say, cell supplier, getting certain cells for their vehicles. Now they have to be more mindful of where those materials are coming from, how much carbon footprint they're dealing with, not only in the production but also transport of those batteries that are crossing borders and everything that come with it. So it is going to pose a challenge for everybody in the supply chain to meet those regulations, have the right data to have that traceability and have that visibility that in future can help consumers drive certain demand for what kind of battery they want to use in terms of the overall emissions. Roger, what kind of conversation you are seeing in that aspect?
Well, you summed it up very well. You've gone through it all in detail, and you're right. And you mentioned their transport, Puneet. I think that's, to me, apart from the geopolitical challenge, the over-reliance on Asia for Europe, when you think about it, so the mining takes place all over the world. But then if all of that material, heavy material, almost always, is shipped all the way to China to be processed and then made into batteries, and then those batteries shipped all the way to Europe, I mean, why can't you cut those two big bits out? Why can't we ship more or have more minerals closer to home and more battery factories closer to home? Because otherwise, it seems to me, when we have this battery passport, if you look at the weighting of the different items in it, so let's say, how clean is the graphite? Is the graphite manufactured using hydrochloric and hydrofluoric acids or something else? And so on and so forth. If you look at the weighting of value in terms of the clean factor, the reduction of carbon footprint, I'd argue surely that the shipping is the biggest weighted part, is the biggest issue. So localizing this stuff isn't just about security of supply and not being over-reliant on China and Asia here in Europe. It's equally about doing what we're supposed to be doing with all of this, which is tackling climate change and reduce CO2 levels. Otherwise, we're kidding ourselves.
Or even a half step. Say you're mining a critical resource in Brazil, why not at the very least refine that material before sending it off to the global supply chain? Only a fraction of the extracted mass is going to be used, so why not add value locally while also reducing the shipped mass?
Nick, you are spot on. And there are now countries, particularly countries and their leaders, saying, hang on a second, why are we shipping this raw material somewhere when we could be adding value to it by processing it ourselves? They're saying that in Australia, they're saying that in South America, and I suspect they'll be saying that more in Africa too. So you raise a very good point there in that intervention. So speak up anytime you like. Because the battery passport is, I was pleased to hear Robin Zeng, the boss of CATL, the most significant battery company in the world, reference it in detail during a recent, I think it was a Davos, maybe not this year, last year. So they're well aware of it. So we shouldn't be complacent in Europe and think, oh, well, they just make dirty batteries in China. So yeah, as long as we fulfill the battery passport, we're sorted. We won't be able to import their batteries. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't think that's the case. But your point there about adding value, localizing the processing is really important. And go back to why don't we? Well, because in the past, we didn't think it was significant. In the past, processing graphite, which is traditionally, not now, there are better processes, but dirty, labour intensive, low value. Why should we do that? Let the Chinese do it. It's very easy. You can look through a lens at the Chinese in one of a number of ways. But one of them is to say, they just did what opportunity we gave them. There's no kind of sinister motivation to this. Some of this stuff we should be doing, we didn't want to do. And they just put their hand up. That's it.
Yeah. One point I want to add on battery passport, and this is without naming the company. So I was in Korea, and I was having a conversation with one of the company's executives, and the conversation went to battery passport. And this company, they are pack integrators. And what this person said, this executive said, that remained with me, and that helped me appreciate the power of battery passport, and what it is going to do. So again, if you look at right now what's happening, somebody makes a cell, right? And then let's say those cells are taken by an automaker. I'm just simplifying it. They put it in a pack, and that automaker is collecting data on how that battery is being utilized as that vehicle is being run through the all that, through the telematics and all. So it's the automaker who in the EV world who has a lot more information about how is that battery being utilized in their vehicle or in their systems. But if you are a little bit upstream, be it a cell manufacturer or somebody who's in the middle, who's being maybe pack integrator or offering some other solutions, they don't get that data. They do not get that information on how is that battery being utilized, and what does it mean for that company to engineer, manufacture the next generation of batteries based on how consumers are using it. Right? So, and this company, this executive said, what he was most excited about with Battery Passport is as the data will be collected about the usage of battery, because the Battery Passport is not just going to have static data of what is made of, what kind of materials going in there. It also going to have how that battery, that specific battery, is utilized by that particular, in that particular system. How many times it is charged, when it was charged. So certain amount of dynamic data, and when it is made available, that's something that is very powerful and very enriching for the upstream companies to get better insights on how exactly battery is being utilized. So perhaps they don't have to over-engineer by 20-30%, I'm just making it up, right? That much, or they don't have to design for 90th percentile person all the time, because they have a better insights into how exactly battery is being utilized in a given region for a given target persona or consumer. And that is very powerful to improve the cost, improve the life, minimize the usage of extra material, or and again, all of that also feeds back into sustainability, feeds back into the reduction of material that you are utilizing or wasting in creation of batteries and whatnot. So I found it very powerful.
Yeah, Nick, do you mind if I jump in and just ask Puneet, and where he was finishing there in particular, the sustainability, recycling. I perhaps shouldn't understand this, but I don't. So increasingly seeing cell to pack and increasingly seeing battery packs integrated into vehicle architecture and vehicle bodies. What does that mean for recycling going forward if the whole thing is, one lump?
Yeah, this is, there's definitely a challenge, right? Because this is where the way I look at it, the two priorities start to collide. One side is if you are a system integrator, let's say a vehicle maker. When I was working for a vehicle maker, we always said the biggest currency for vehicle is volume, not the weight, it's the volume. You have to fit that battery in a certain amount of volume, and any volume that is not a battery in that battery pack is wastage. Right? So every company, the design criteria is maximize the number of cells you can pack in that volume. So, but if you look at the battery pack, traditional battery pack, what it has, it is going to have certain structural beams, right? It's going to have certain volume that will be taken away by, coolant lines that are going through that and other things, right? So every company, every battery engineer looks to minimize those things. Right? How can you minimize that? Some of that is absolutely necessary, like thermal management, you have to do that. So increasingly, companies are looking into, can they remove some of those structural elements? Instead of having 6 beams, can they have 2 beams? Or maybe no beams, right? So can they remove those things so they can pack more number of cells in the same pack? And it can be up to 15% higher energy density of the same chemistry, because you are packing more cells in the given volume. So that is the ambition. Companies, automakers, battery guys want to go to the cell to pack architecture, because now you don't have to. So traditionally, you take cells, you make modules, you take those modules, you put them in those modules like a Lego bricks in the battery pack, right? So that is to improve the energy density. But if you look from the other side of the equation, which is somebody has to service, sometimes servicing are needed. Somebody has to take care of the end of life, what happens after recycling, reuse, and what are the implications for that. And of course, cell to pack engineering can have challenges. I'm not going to say it's always has challenges, but it can have challenges in removing some of those cells, or how you recycle that, or the ease of that. So absolutely, there are some of those priorities are colliding, and the question is, how are there incentives to reuse or those packs as is, or are there incentives to recycle, extract the material out? What is the economics equation around it? And also, can the cell to pack architectures be developed in a way that they can be optimized or service better? And a great example of that is if you look at CATL. Right? CATL has talked a lot about their chill-in battery, which is cell-to-pack architecture, but they are also talking about what they call, and Roger and I, we saw that when we were in Asia, what they call choco swap. So what that means is like a chocolate bar, you can take certain fraction of the battery pack away or add to it, right? So to increase the range, if you're going for a long drive, you can just plug it in another block and go forward. So again, if you look at those designs, are companies like, and I'm not saying CATL is the only one. Every company, CATL, BYD, LG, all of them are working through those. How can they maximize the energy density, but make sure do it in a way that can be flexible, be it for servicing or some plug and play later on. So I think those are active areas of engineering and optimization, the way I see it. I don't think anybody has the absolute right answer at this time.
By the way, that noise wasn't me coughing. That was Presley the dog barking by the door of my office. Just so in case anybody wondered. I'd like to make a suggestion to accompany, hopefully, the maintenance of the 2035 deadline in Europe for stopping making internal combustion engines. And it's this. We should have a strategy called Made in Europe 2035. And to accompany that, I would recommend having a program a lot like they've had in China for many years, an annual program called EV100. I don't know, maybe Puneet's been to one of these. I've only been to one a long time ago, 2017. And what it does is brings together the politicians, the OEMs, the supply chain tier ones, investors, all the interested parties to basically build a plan and deliver on the plan. It's an action orientated plan, and because they have this meeting, this rendezvous every year, once a year. It is progressively building up the ambition of as was Made in China 2025. So we can't just in Europe snap our fingers and let the politicians simply say, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. What we've got to do is have, an industrial strategy that is anchored in detail, and a forum in which we bring together the interested parties, the key players. We don't have that. We have events, we have things like, I've just been at one, IAA, we have, battery show, we have all these things, but they never put all the right people in the room at the same time to talk about policy and progress. They have, lots of great panels. They're all good, don't get me wrong. But if we really want to get serious about this, we need to have a 10-year vision that is a plan that can be executed on, and it's managed and calibrated year on year. So my suggestion, Made in Europe 2035, and have an annual forum to deliver it.
Very well said. I fully agree that these things needs to go. I mean, to be a major player in this rapidly changing battery industry, right? It's a great opportunity. It's a economy-wise, geopolitical consideration in the 21st century and what it means for all of us. But the challenge is, it is not, as Roger, you said, it's any country or any is not going to solve all these elements by themselves. It requires a collaboration across industry, but also with policymakers and customers to make sure, hey, we have the right ecosystem, and you said it very well, Roger. It's like, for every zone, every country needs to have that framework. And again, China and countries in Asia like Korea, Japan, they have shown the way how they have invested it with a strategy and vision in a longer term to drive the progress. And again, just to add to Roger's perspective, if you look at it, CATL did not exist as a company before 2011. So in 10 years' time, it came to dominate the world of battery. They are the movers and shakers. And it's of course, a tremendous credit, credit to what the company has done, but also it's a reminder that a company, be it in a new company in US, a new company in Europe, can also become the next CATL. A country can become what China has become in the world of battery in the last 15 years. US and Europe can get there, but that requires the focused collaboration and as you said, a policy and strategy-driven execution. So 100%, Roger, you have put it very well.
Yeah, and if I may also add to that, how did CATL get to be what they are today? In many ways, of course, but one of the core elements was the fusion of American engineering prowess, knowledge and experience in a gentleman called Bob Gallion, who was employee number 2 at CATL. So you had an American engineer, a Chinese chemist and industrialist coming together to build that company. Now, what's to stop that going the other way around? I know some people have an answer for that at that point, but that's a case study in itself that I think is important. But Nick, can I kind of finish by saying something that I've said a lot last week in Germany, for the reason being that it's from Johann Wolfgang Goethe, who is a famous, one of the famous sons of Germany. And he had very many clever things to say, but in regards to where we are today with battery, EV, energy, all of that, I love this phrase, and the phrase is this: knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. And that's the point. The Chinese are really good at doing. They act. We talk a lot. Well, we've just been talking a lot, haven't we, for the last hour?
Well, thank you for joining us today, Roger. It was awesome to have you for an episode of the Battery Podcast.
Well, like I said, I'm truly flattered to be invited. Puneet's work and what he does at Siemens, heading up the whole battery thing is phenomenal. So to be in his company over in Hong Kong earlier, and to be on this call with both you and he, Nick, I'm truly flattered. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thanks for joining, Roger. As always, I enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to meeting you in person very soon.
And thank you to the audience for tuning in to another episode of the Battery Podcast. We'll be back soon to drill into some of the concepts we touched on with Roger, with some other guests. But until then, check out our past episodes of the Battery Podcast, find more information on our website, siemens.com/battery, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you don't miss episodes as they come out. We hope to have you back again soon. This podcast contains the personal views and opinions of the speakers. It is important to note that these opinions are solely those of the speakers and do not reflect the views or positions of Siemens, its management, its employees, or any entities the speakers may be affiliated with. Siemens as a company does not endorse any of these statements made in the podcast. Siemens bears no responsibility for ensuring the content's accuracy or verifying the statements made in this podcast.